Welcome to the WedPro podcast, the podcast for WedPros no matter their stage.
Hello and welcome back to the WedPro podcast. And today I want to talk about something that I think gets treated as a nice extra in the world of weddings, when really I do think it is one of the most powerful things you can build as a wedding supplier, and that is client experience. And before you kind of switch off and think, I've heard about this before, are you going to be talking about things like welcome gifts, handwritten notes, nice packaging, being super lovely to your clients and adding a few cute touch points along the way? And although, yes, some of those things can be a part of it, and I'm not against, a handwritten note or a thoughtful gift, I am fully here for making your couples feel extra special. But we're going to be diving into client experience in a bit of a deeper way today, because I think when we only talk about client experience in that way, we make it sound much smaller than it actually is. Because the client experience is not just about the nice stuff. It's not just about that kind of cherry on top of the cake after somebody has already booked you. It is actually part of the structure of your entire business. It shows up in how you build trust. It's part of how you're able to justify the price that you are. It's part of how you are able to get testimonials and reviews, and it absolutely forms part of how you're able to get referrals as well. And honestly, I think one of the biggest reasons that some wedding businesses grow through a really strong word of mouth strategy, while others feel like they constantly have to kind of start from scratch every single month and drag new inquiries and are starting really from zero every single month, comes down to client experience. So that is what we are going to cover today. But before we get into it, if you have been listening recently and this podcast has been helping you think differently about your wedding business, please just take 2 seconds to hit that subscribe button, like the episode, or share it onto your stories. And please, if you know a wedding business who needs a little bit of Katie advice in their ears, do feel free to share this to a wedding business friend who needs it. And I do mean 2 seconds. I know we all hear podcast hosts say this and think, yeah, get on with the episode. But genuinely, sharing this podcast helps me to get this information in front of more people like you. And that really matters to me. I want better business thinking in this industry. And I want more wedding suppliers building businesses that actually support them, not businesses that just look lovely on Instagram but feel chaotic and crazy behind the scenes. So if something does land today in today's episode, please do share it. Send it to the friend who is amazing at what they do, but still is carrying, half of their business inside their head. And if you want to tell me what has landed, come and DM me over at wedding_business_hub or WedPro CEO. I do love hearing from you. And a lot of what we talk about on our podcast comes from real conversations that I'm having with wedding suppliers, things that people tell me on coaching calls, DMs that stop and make me think, or the moments where somebody says, I really need more inquiries. And then when we actually look at the business, the real issue isn't just inquiries. It's that structure underneath them. And that is actually where today's episode has come from. I've really been thinking a lot about structure, and I know that this sounds a little bit boring. This isn't an episode all about go and sort your folders out structure, although if your Google Drive looks anything like mine has at certain points in its life, that might not be a bad idea. But I mean the kind of foundations and structure underneath your business. And that really is the thing that makes your growth feel stable rather than quite frantic. The thing that means that when more inquiries do come in, the whole experience doesn't depend on you being perfectly rested, perfectly available, and able to remember every tiny detail at exactly the right time. That structure that really helps a couple and a client feel held by your process and by your business. And that's what I keep on really coming back to here, held. Does your business hold the client? Does it guide your couple? Does it reassure them at points along the way? Does it make the next step obvious? Does it make them feel as though they have made a really good decision? Or perhaps does your couple feel like they have to keep working a little bit too hard to understand what happens next? And that question's really been coming to me in a few different ways. I've been working on some behind the scenes stuff for my own business, working on a new website, and it has made me stop and look at things through different lenses. Not just stopping to look and think, right, does this page explain exactly what I do? Not just this just look right, but really, looking at what is somebody feeling when they land on this page. Do they understand where they are? Do they feel guided? Do they feel like there's proper thinking behind this business? Do they feel safe enough to take that next step? And at the same time, I'm running my business and I've had a brilliant new client join who I'm genuinely so excited to get stuck into working with. He has this creative photography studio space, and we're going to be working through how to get this business to consistent 6 figures and then looking at the path towards a 7-figure business and what that could look like for him. And when you're having those kinds of conversations and planning out those kinds of sessions, it doesn't just come down to posting more. It's not just about saying, right, let's get more visible and hope for the best. We have to really look at what is going on underneath. If more people do inquire, can your business hold them? If the business gets easier, can the experience still feel high touch? If your price goes up, does the client journey reinforce that spend for that client? Does it reinforce that investment? If your business grows, does the delivery of what you do still feel calm, still feel professional? Or does everything start to wobble a little bit as if it was all sitting in the owner's head? And that is where, when we really talk about growth, what we're really talking about, because it's easy to sit and talk about being visible, getting yourself out there, getting in front of clients. And I definitely do say that you cannot sell a secret and that you do need to be visible and people need to know about you in order to book you. But visibility isn't the whole picture. It is much more important to ask whether your business is ready to hold more visibility. And here's my opinion on this. Marketing gets people into your world, but client experience really decides what they say about you once they have been there. And that matters, and it matters more than people really think about. Your reputation in the wedding industry is not only built by what you post online, it is built in conversations that you are not even a part of. It's built when somebody, at work says, who did you book for your photography? Or who did you book to do your ceremony? It's built when a past couple is out for dinner and a newly engaged friend says, oh, you need to speak to our photographer. She was absolutely incredible. It's built when somebody says, honestly, our wedding planner was amazing. She made everything feel calmer. Or our florist just got it. We didn't have to chase them once. That is marketing. And it might not look like marketing as you didn't schedule it. You didn't sit and write a caption about it or put a Canva graphic behind it at all. But it is marketing. And in some ways, it is the best kind of marketing as it comes from somebody who has actually experienced you. And that is why client experience is not separate from your marketing. It is not the thing that happens after marketing has done its job. It's the thing that turns one booking into the next conversation, and then hopefully that next booking too. And I think a lot of suppliers hear the word client experience and start really thinking about what else they need to add. A welcome pack, whether it's a better guide, whether it's a gift, a check-in, a PDF, maybe even add in a client portal. And although some of these things may be useful, I don't think great client experience always starts with adding more. I think often it can start with removing some of the small moments of doubt where a couple might sit and wonder if they're in safe hands. That's the real work. It's not always about making the experience of working with you more elaborate. It's often about making things feel clearer. And it's that difference between a client thinking, what happens now? And a client really thinking, oh my word, this supplier has absolutely got this. And to me, that is the feeling of a high quality service. Not necessarily luxury in expensive champagne and marble surfaces kind of way, but I mean in the feeling of not having to wonder, not having to have doubt creep in, not having to chase, not having to decode the process, not having to sit and wonder or ask, did you get my message? Or when should I expect to hear that? Or are we supposed to do something now? And that really is where trust is built. It's not going to be one huge dramatic moment, but it's just going to be in the little gaps where doubt could have crept in for your couple, but it didn't. And there is one moment in the client journey that I think gets overlooked all of the time, and that is the moment just after somebody pays. So think about it. Your couple has made the decision. They have chosen you, they have sent the money, they are excited, relieved, probably pleased to have ticked that other huge thing off of their wedding list. But there is a little tiny moment after a purchase where the brain goes, right, I hope we've done the right thing. And that is super, super normal. Just that little bit of doubt that needs a little bit of reassurance. And this is especially true in weddings. People are paying for things that they cannot fully experience yet. They're booking somebody for a day that has not happened, and they are investing massively in trust for a future moment. They're essentially buying the belief that when that moment comes, you will do what you said you would do, and you will make this part of their wedding feel easier, better, more beautiful, calmer, more meaningful, whatever your particular role is. So what happens just after they book really, really matters. Do they hear from you in a way that reassures them? Do they understand what happens next? Do they feel like there is a clear process? Or do they pay, then sit in a weird little gap where they feel excited but left slightly hanging? And you might know everything is fine. You might know you'll be in touch in a month's time or in a few months. You might know exactly how your process works. But if the couple doesn't know from their side, then there will be uncertainty. And uncertainty is not a premium luxury feeling. A strong client experience takes that moment incredibly seriously, and it affirms the decision that they have made. It helps them feel, yeah, we chose well. And that doesn't come with a big dramatic gesture. Sometimes it's just a simple, warm, clear welcome into your world. Something in your own voice that says, I'm so pleased that you're here. Here's what happens next. This is when you're going to hear from me. And for now, you don't need to worry about anything. And that's not boring admin to your couple. That is trust building. And that is part of the sale after the sale. And I want to say something that I think might be important for a few of you that are listening. Care matters, absolutely. But care alone does not become a system. And it matters, of course it does. I want you to care about your clients. You already will care massively. You will already be warm, thoughtful, generous, and you'll already be brilliant to absolutely work with. But caring deeply doesn't automatically create a consistent client experience, because being lovely is not the same as having a strong client journey. And I think this is where a lot of wedding suppliers do get a little bit caught out. They know they care, right? You know you would do anything for your couples. You know that you go above and beyond. But if the experience depends on what you remember, when you remember it, and whether you have the time and headspace to do that thing properly, something will eventually slip. And this isn't because you're careless at all. It's because you are human. And that is the whole point, A great client experience and a great business actually should not rely on you being superhuman. It should be designed well enough that the predictable parts happen consistently and your personal energy can go on the moments where it really matters. And that might sound less fluffy and less romantic than I just pour my heart and soul into every single client. But it is much more sustainable, and it is usually better for your couple too. And this is where I think automation gets a little bit unfairly judged. A lot of creative business owners hear the word automation and they immediately think of a cold, impersonal experience and your client being churned through a sort of machine. And I absolutely understand why. We've all received horrible automated emails where your name appears in a slightly weird place and the whole thing feels really jarred and like it was written by somebody who has never met a human being. And this isn't what I mean at all. Good automation should not remove the personal touch. It should actually protect it. If the predictable parts of your client experience are handled well, in your voice, with warmth, then you have more capacity for the moments that genuinely need you. So those moments like a nervous client or a family tension or a last minute change, the emotional wobble, the things that cannot be handled by a template. That's where your energy belongs. Not manually rewriting the same what happens next email for the 47th time and then thinking that is personal. That's not high touch. That's not what makes your experience high touch. That's just inefficient, right? A thoughtful automated email written well and sent at the right time with the right information and that right tone will create a better experience than a personal message that you meant to send last Tuesday and didn't get round to it until the Friday because life got in the way. And that is the reality, right? Personal doesn't have to mean manual. A manual mess is never better than a thoughtful system. And I think that is something that more wedding suppliers do need to hear. And this is why I just want to bring WedPro Studio into the conversation, as this is not just a nice theory for me at the moment. We are so close to launch now, and this is exactly the kind of thing that has been shaping what we are building. WedPro Studio is a wedding business support system built to help wedding suppliers with the parts of their business that actually create bookings and keep the business moving. Content, inquiries, sales, follow-up, client experience. And I want to be really, really clear about this. This is not generic AI with a wedding label on it. This has been built completely by me with real wedding industry strategy. How couples buy, why they hesitate, what makes them trust you, and how they move from seeing you online to inquiring to booking and to becoming the kind of client who reviews you and recommends you afterwards. That is the bigger picture. And already we've opened up for a small group of testing and we have got people inside getting wins. People who have used the software to take care of replies and have booked clients that they very likely would have lost otherwise. Not because this software magically makes them better at what they do. They were already amazing at what they do. The difference is that WedPro Studio helped them respond better in the moment where the booking could have slipped. And this is what really excites me. This is not about something that is replacing your voice. It's not the idea of making anything robotic in your business at all. It's this idea that I've been obsessed with over the last 12 months, that a brilliant wedding supplier who is busy but has a million things going on can be supported in exactly the right moment where a couple needs that next step. And that is powerful. And we have seen people inside WedPro Studio take a lead that could have easily gone cold, follow a clearer structure, send a stronger reply, and win that booking. And that is the bit I want you to hear. Sometimes the difference between a lost inquiry and a booked client is not talent. And it's not always price. And it's not always whether your work is good enough. Often it's whether the right message goes out at the right moment in a way that helps your couple feel confident enough to move. And that is exactly why I am building it. WedPro Sales, which sits inside WedPro Studio, is not just there to write nicer messages. It is being built to help you understand what is happening underneath the inquiry. It understands where couples might be hesitating. It knows what they need to say to help couples feel clearer. It produces the kinds of responses that help your couples take the next step without feeling any pressure. It still writes in a way that still sounds you, and it is very different from write me a follow-up. It is strategy at the point that you actually need it. And the client experience side matters just as much as once somebody does book. The business still has to deliver the feeling that made them say yes. And that's where your reviews come from, that's where referrals come from, and that is really where your reputation is built. So if you want to be one of the first wedding suppliers inside of WedPro Studio, go and get your name on the Founding 100 list. You can find that at founding100.wedprostudio.com. Founding, Founding, 100.wedprostudio.com. We are really, really close to launching this now, and I want the right people in there early. People who are not just looking for that quick hack. People who want better content, stronger inquiries, smarter sales, better follow-up, and a client experience that actually supports the level that your wedding business wants to grow to. And if that sounds like you, get on that list. And please, if you know another wedding supplier who would benefit from this conversation, please take 2 seconds now or after the episode to send this to them. This is the kind of thinking we need more of inside the wedding industry. Okay, let's come back to client experience itself. I want to talk about the idea of making invisible value really visible. And what do I mean by that? And what I mean is this, right? So much of what you do is really, really hidden. The thinking, the planning, the prep, the emotional labor, the problem solving that you might be doing, and those little decisions that you're making that stop things becoming issues for your couples, right? That calm response to something that could have become much bigger. Your couple doesn't always see that. They see the outcome. They see the final gallery, the flowers, the styling, the music, the film, the food, the timeline. They see that smooth running of the day. But they don't always see the work that made that outcome possible. And if they do not see or feel the value, it becomes harder for them to understand your price. And this is why client experience and pricing are really, really connected. You can't just say, I offer a premium service and expect that one line to do that whole job, right? Everybody says that they offer a good experience. Everybody says that they care. And everybody says that they are personal, right? The question really is whether your value is felt. Is your process clear? Does the communication feel calm and supportive? Are your couple reassured at that right moment? And do they understand what makes working with you feel different? Are there parts of your service that reduce that risk that is actually visible to them? Because that is what supports stronger pricing. It's not about over-explaining every tiny detail. This is not about justifying yourself to death. I'm a massive believer that we don't justify prices at all, but it's about making the experience of working with you feel as valuable as the result that you deliver. And a really simple kind of way I can explain this is thinking about that wedding emergency kit. And I know that sounds practical, almost too small, but this really just helps me explain this point beautifully. An emergency on the day wedding kit is not impressive, as you can list loads of random items and look organized on a spreadsheet, right? That's not why it's impressive. It's impressive in the moment something happens and you become the calm person in the room who had already thought about it. A hem comes down, somebody spills something, a button gives up at the worst possible time, a phone is about to die. And then instead of that kind of energy in the room turning frantic, you're the person that says, I've got that. And that is what service is. That is that experience. And that is the thing that people really remember. Not always as a huge dramatic story. Sometimes it's just that one sentence that said everything. She had everything. He was so calm. They just sorted it. They thought of things we hadn't even thought about. And that is reputation being built. And the point of this story wasn't the emergency kit, right? The point is about what it represents. It's just a really great example of something that says you anticipated things so that your couple didn't even need to worry about them. And that is what a strong client experience does. It makes people feel like you are already ahead of any problems. Okay, I found this next thing really interesting when I was really looking at client experience, because a lot of companies and businesses really do believe that they deliver a high level customer experience. But when customers were surveyed and asked, far fewer agree. And the gap actually was huge. And I think the wedding industry really needs to learn something from that, because most wedding suppliers would probably say, I give a really good client experience. And many of them do care deeply. You're kind, you're thoughtful. I don't think you can be in this industry without kind of having a certain level of investment in a couple's day and being kind and being thoughtful and wanting your couples to feel looked after. And that absolutely is not up for question whatsoever. But the question is not only do you care, the better question is actually, does your client experience feel as good to your couples as you think it does? And that's much more of a useful question. Because from your side, you are always going to see that effort. You know what's happening. You know what's happening behind the scenes. You know the hours you're pouring in, the thought, the details, the things that you didn't let become problems. But the client only experiences what reaches them. They don't know what you were meant to say. They don't know what you planned to send. They don't know the process really unless you actually show them. And that is why a business can be working incredibly hard behind the scenes and still feel really unclear from the client side. And that is a problem. It's not a failure. It's just a small problem and it can be fixed. And this also directly links to reviews and referrals because a lot of suppliers who want more inquiries, which I completely understand. Inquiries make your business feel alive. When they're coming in, your business feels calmer. And when they are quiet, your brain starts doing that lovely thing where it tries to solve 6 problems at once at kind of 2 o'clock in the morning, right? But if every new booking has to come from brand new attention, right? And brand new content, brand new people finding you from scratch, that cycle becomes really exhausting, right? A stronger business has things that compound. They have things like past clients recommending you, reviews building trust before somebody even speaks to you, other suppliers mentioning your name in rooms that you're not even in, couples being part of your marketing simply as the experience was so good that they want to talk about it. And that is where client experience really becomes a growth engine for you and your business. And this doesn't happen overnight. It's not a magic, super wave a magic wand and everything's amazing. But I don't think sustainable businesses are built on those foundations anyway. This happens steadily. Your experience earns that review. And that review supports that next inquiry. And the inquiry feels safer as somebody else has already said you were brilliant. And then that person books, they have a great experience, and then they recommend you. And that is how your business starts to feel less like it's constantly pushing and pushing all of the time. And reviews and testimonials are such an important part of that, because a review is not just a nice little confidence boost for you. Although we all love a review and we have them in our phone saved nicely so that we can give ourselves a little bit of a confidence boost every now and then, right? That's amazing. But reviews are actually trust assets too. They help somebody who has not met you yet borrow a little bit of confidence from somebody who already has. They support your website. They support your sales process. They can support your visibility on Google. And they give future clients language for why you are worth choosing. But the review is not really created in the moment that you ask for it. It is earned long before that. It is earned in the way that somebody feels after they paid. It is earned in the way that you communicated during that planning process, the way that you handle changes, the way that you make the wedding day feel, the way that you finish the experience with your couple. Yes, ask for the review properly. Make it easy. Send a direct link. Don't make people hunt for it as if they're on some sort of emotional treasure chest quest. It isn't that at all. But know this, the words that they write at the end are shaped about how they felt the entire way through working with you. And this is why I think that the client experience matters more than suppliers realize. So many people deliver the thing and then mentally move on. The gallery's sent, the wedding's done, the flowers are cleared, the film is delivered, the planning file is closed. And I really understand why. Businesses move quickly. There's usually another client waiting, another date coming, another inquiry sitting there, or another thing that needs your attention. But the end of the experience with you deserves a moment. It doesn't need to be dramatic. It doesn't need to be over the top. It just needs to feel like the couple has not been dropped the second that your main work is done. And that final moment can actually guide them through what happens next. It can help them enjoy what you have already delivered. And it can make leaving that review and testimonial feel super easy and natural. And it can leave them with the feeling that the whole thing was considered from start to finish. And that is what people remember. The ending matters. But sometimes that final feeling becomes that thing that they carry into their review. And it helps them remember you in a recommendation or the conversation that they have in the future with their newly engaged friend. Okay, I want to talk about price for a minute because client experience absolutely affects how people feel about what they paid. Can a client experience help you command higher prices? In my opinion, yes, but not if you only talk about it. You cannot just write, we offer an incredible client experience on your website and expect people to instantly think, great, take my money. because that's not how it works. The client experience has to be communicated and delivered. People need to understand what makes working with you feel different. They need to feel the structure. They need to feel that reassurance. They need to understand the guidance, the preparation, the thought, everything that you bring. And this is where so many of you are underselling yourselves. You talk a lot about what the client gets at the end, but not enough about what it feels like to get them there. And that matters in weddings, because a couple is buying into something emotional, expensive, and actually really intangible, because they are buying before they can see or fully feel that result, right? So the way that you explain and deliver the process affects the way they understand the value. Because if your process feels vague, the price feels riskier. But if your process feels clear, thoughtful, that price feels much, much safer. I also want to say something that feels a little bit uncomfortable, but it is so important. If your client experience is weak, more marketing may make the problem bigger. And I know that's not always the shiny answer. Most people want more visibility, more followers, more inquiries, more traffic, more leads. And of course, all of that can be important. But if more people come in and the process underneath cannot hold them, you don't get more opportunity, and you don't always necessarily get more sales either. You get pressure, you get more messages to manage, you get more people to follow up, you sometimes get more clients to onboard, but you also get more places where communication really slips and more opportunities for that experience to become really inconsistent. So before you only focus on getting more people into your business, it's worth really looking at what happens when they actually get here. And that is such a simple question, but it really does change everything. What happens when they land on a website? What happens when they actually inquire? What happens after they book? What happens after they pay? What happens when they need reassurance? What happens when the wedding is over? And if your answer is, honestly, well, it depends how busy I am, that's useful information for you to know, because it's not a reason to panic. We've all been there at certain points, but it does tell you where your business needs some structure. And again, this is why what I'm building with WedPro Studio matters so much to me, because we are not just building tools for the nice, shiny front end of the business. We're building things that actually support you as the business owner through that actual journey. The places where people inquire, the moments where they hesitate, the replies that win or lose that trust, the follow-up that either revives that conversation or lets it die, and the client experience that actually turns into a booking and turns that booking into a review and a review into the next booking. That is the full picture. Okay, before I bring this episode to a close, I really want you to think about one thing. If somebody booked you today, would the experience immediately make them feel more confident in their decision? Not, would you do a good job? Because I know you probably would. Not, do you care about them? Because I know you do. But would the experience itself affirm the price and the investment they just made? Would the communication feel clear? Would they know what happens next? Would your couple feel guided? Would they feel like they had entered a business with a proper structure, not just a lovely person doing their best? And that question will tell you a lot. And if the answer is yes, brilliant, keep strengthening it. And if the answer is sort of, or only when I'm on top of everything, or I usually send something, but it depends what else is going on, then that is where the work is, right? And that really is the work that is worth doing, because it's not just so you feel more polished. It's not just so that you're able to be more professional, but it is because that stronger client experience creates a stronger, more sustainable business. It helps you command high prices. It supports your pricing. It builds trust. It gets better reviews. That creates more referrals, and it reduces the amount of heavy lifting that your marketing has to do. It gives your couples a better experience, and we're always here for giving people better experiences. And it gives you a business that feels more stable. So here's my final thought on this episode. Your client experience is where your promise meets that next step. Your marketing can say all the right things. Your website can look beautiful. Your Instagram can be full of gorgeous work. And your sales call can feel warm and that your clients were so into what you were doing. But the experience is where your client really finds out whether your business really is what it said it was. And when the reality is even better than what they read on your website and what they read on your marketing materials and what they experienced on that sales call with you, people talk. And that is what you want, right? You don't just want happy clients. You want clients who feel looked after, couples who feel choosing you was one of the best and easiest decisions that they made, couples who say your name in rooms that you're not in. And that is the kind of marketing that money can't buy. And it starts with the structure underneath your service. If this episode has stopped and made you think, please just take 2 seconds to hit subscribe or send it to a wedding supplier friend. It really does help get more eyes on our podcast. And if you do want to be one of the first wedding suppliers inside WedPro Studio, go and check out the link in bio or head to founding100.wedprostudio.com. Get on the Founding 100 list. We are so close to launch now, and we've already got people getting wins by following that simple structure, letting the software support their replies and winning clients they otherwise would have lost. And that is really about what this is about. I'm not here for more chaos or more tabs open in your brain at all. I'm here to help you have a better supported wedding business. Better content, better inquiry replies, better sales conversations, better follow-up, better client experience, all built around real wedding industry strategy. And if that is the world that you want to be in, go and get your name on the list, and I will see you next time.